Let's go over Unit 3 review. They gave us all these formulas up here to help us reference, but we really need to memorize them. Remember, you can memorize by creating your own Quizlets or flashcards. Or you can just memorize simply by rewriting the formula every time you use it. Write the equation of the line with slope of 1/5 and the line passes through the point 4, 9. There are a bunch of different ways that we are going to solve this. I'm going to solve it using slope-intercept form, and then I'm going to solve it using point-slope form. The most efficient way is to do point-slope form, but a lot of us struggle to remember this one. A lot of us do remember slope-intercept, so I'm going to teach you how to do slope-intercept first, just in case that kind of helps you. Alright, so if I know that my slope is 1/5, then I'm going to write m equals 1/5. If I know my point is 4, 9, that means my x is going to be 4 and my y is going to be 9. Now I'm going to plug those into my equation to solve. So y was 9, m is 1/5, x is 4, and my b is just b. I don't know what that is. Okay, now I'm going to simplify and combine like terms. So 1/5 times 4 is 0.8. In order to get b by itself, I need to move the 0.8 across my barrier, which means I'm going to subtract. So I'll do 9 minus 0.8. So I get 8.2. So my y-intercept is 8.2. Let's rewrite our equation. Now I know my slope is 1/5 and my b is 8.2. I'm done. I have my equation of the line. Now the way that people typically have you do this is do it in point-slope form. So for point-slope form, I'm still going to use what I've identified here. I'm going to write down my formula, and then I'm going to plug in my y, x, and m. Now technically it just said write the equation. It didn't say simplify, so we might be able to stop there. It's a little hard for us to use that, but it did not say to simplify it. I'm going to go ahead and simplify it into slope-intercept form, but you can stop here. Typically, it will tell you what form it wants it to be in. Okay, so first I'm going to distribute my 1/5. Also, by the way, simplifying it allows me to see if I actually did the other one correctly, because I'm solving it in two different ways. Notice how I did times -4. And then I'm going to add that 9 over, and I end up with the same answer. Now again, it just says write the equation of the line, so it doesn't say in what form. You technically could have done standard form also. Okay, that is number 1. Remember, I showed you two different strategies, so you don't need to do both of these. This is my preferred strategy. If I was doing this on a test, I would have done this and stopped. But your brain might like this one better. Use what works best for your brain. Your teacher might have also showed you a different way. All right, write the equation of a line that passes through the points. Okay, so since I have 2 points, I'm going to be using my slope formula. Remember, you always write your formula first because it allows your teacher to give you partial credit. Now I'm going to break down what each thing equals, so that way I put everything in the right spot. Really doesn't matter which coordinate point you decide is your first and which one's your second. Taking that time to make sure I'm doing it correctly and putting it in the right spots. You might also, for your brain, color coordinate it. Don't ever be afraid to use colors. Colors make the world a little bit brighter. Okay, and then I said my x2 is 0. And then I'm making sure I keep that -4 with it. So again, it's really good to take a second. If you want to color coordinate, color coordinate to make sure you did it right. So you don't want to get it wrong because you didn't take 5 seconds to make sure you put things in the correct spot. So that's Y1, so it should have gone here. Okay. Just helps me see a little bit better. If it helps you, then do it. Don't worry about doing the things that you need to help you be successful. I'm not going to do the color one because I can see the last one. So they're all in the right spots. Now again, I want to make this as easy as possible. So I'm going to type the whole thing in my calculator, making sure that I put the negative signs, and that way I get the answer all in one step. You can also switch it to a fraction. I'm going to leave it like that because why switch it into a fraction, right? So that's my M. In order to write the equation of the line, and I always encourage you to mark up your problem. So in order to write the equation of the line, let's write our formula first. That way our teacher can give us partial credit in case we mess up. So just by writing these two things, your teacher can give you partial credit. We know what our M is. We need to know what our B is. Now we know that B is our y-intercept, and a lot of times they will give that to you. So there is my B. It's in my given information. If I didn't have that, though, I could always solve it using, I'm going to put minus 3 instead of plus negative 3. It's not really necessary to do that, plus negative 3. If you didn't understand that this was your y-intercept, you can always do this method, and it will give it to you. Right? It's okay if you didn't recognize this because you can still go through this process that we did. It takes a little bit longer, but it's better to take the time and be right. So again, if you didn't recognize that this was your slope-intercept, that's okay. You can always solve it using that method. All right, let's look at number 3. Write the equation of the line that represents the following table. So in order to get the equation of the line, I need a slope and a y-intercept. In order to find my slope given 2 points, I must use this formula. So writing down these formulas helps my teacher know that I can get partial credit. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm actually just going to write it straight on the table. I'm going to pick these top points just to make it a little bit easier for myself. Okay, so we have 5 minus 4 over 2 minus 0. And I'll type that straight in my calculator. Yes, I can do some of this in my head, but sometimes just doing it in the calculator to make sure my brain doesn't get exhausted during the test can help out a lot. So that's my M. You can also do this business where you type in the 1, put the 1 and the 2, and it ends up 1 over 2. That's fine too. So that's my slope. Now remember, my y-intercept is 0, comma b. And they were really nice and gave that to me right here. So I know that my B is 4. So plugging that into my equation, I get 0.5x plus 4. You also could have put 1/2. Remember, equivalent numbers are okay. And then for both of these problems, really all 3 of these problems, another method you could have used is just to graph it. So if you graphed 4, 9 and did your slope, you'd be able to find your formula from that line. If you graphed what they gave you here, you'd be able to find the formula from the line, and you could also graph these points to find the formula from the line. So you can always graph. I don't have graph paper right now, so I'm not going to show that to you, but remember, that's always an option. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and see what that would have looked like if you had graphed all those points instead of done the algebraic way. So remember, you're going to write your equation first, because that allows your teacher to give you partial credit. It also slows down your brain. Then we're going to identify on the line. So remember, your y-intercept is where it intersects the y-axis. It's where that y-axis catches your number football. So my b is going to be 1. Now your slope is always rise over run. So you're going to go scan through your line and find spots where it perfectly hits the corners. See how it perfectly hits the crisscross right there? And then your slope is always your rise over run. So you have 2 options here. You can write down your coordinate points and do this formula. Right? So I can identify some coordinate points. I already know 0, 1, and then I can see 3, 3. So I can do my formula. and that'll give me my slope. That's one way to do it, especially if you're confused about rise over run a lot. So I just picked 2 points. I picked this point and this point, and I plugged them into my formula. That's one way to find your slope. Another way is you can count. So up 2, right 1, 2, 3. So either way works. Just do whatever works best for your brain. I kind of encourage you to use the formula because you need to memorize the formula and then check by counting. Especially because a lot of your tests in the future are going to be on computers, and sometimes it's harder to count on those computers. I always like to circle my answer to make it easy for my teacher. All right, that is how you do slope-intercept form from a graph, from points, and from a table. Have a great day, Algebros.